Can everyone hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great. All right, welcome everyone. I'm going to get started. The session is being recorded, so if you need to play it back later, you are welcome to do so. So good morning, everyone. This session is to introduce the OSSLT and the online platform. Our focus this morning is a twofold. So the first 25 minutes of the session, students, I will be addressing your concerns, and we'll be walking through what the test looks like for you. Teachers, once this first session is done and the students are practicing on the test, I will walk you through the Invigilation guide. I'll show you what it looks like and answer any questions you may have. So let's get started. So students, what do you need to know about the OSSLT? Well, it is a compulsory standardized test that is required to be completed by those students who wish to obtain a secondary school diploma. You have 2 attempts to write the OSSLT, the first of which is going to happen next week. If you are successful, you don't have to write the second attempt. Unlike a traditional test, a pass on the literacy test is a level 3, a 75%, which is the provincial standard. So the test itself is out of 400 marks, and in order to be successful, you need a minimum of 300 marks. So if we quickly scan through this slide, you'll see that you're going to write on either one of the following 3 days next week in your period 1 class. So teachers, if there's an error in your room number, please let us know. So Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday of next week. I'll go over the schedule in a little more detail in the following slides. When we look at the actual test, it is completely computer-based. There are 2 sessions, A and B, and it is recommended that each session take up to 60 minutes to complete, but of course you have additional time if need be. There are 33 questions in total between A and B. 31 of the 33 questions are multiple choice, leaving 2 questions that are constructed open response. So when we look at the multiple choice questions, they are some enhanced features. So you'll have some questions that are drag and drop, meaning the selection may ask you to put events in the proper chronological order and you would drag the events into place. Drop-down menus, so select the correct definition of the key term from the list below, or checklist, which is going to ask you to click all the boxes that apply. The 2 constructed open response questions are as follows. So one is a short response, and it may be something like you would see in a short story question. Explain the significance of the red balloon to the young boy, and then a long response. This year, the long response is a supported series of paragraphs known as the opinion piece. At the end of the 2 sessions, you also have to complete a questionnaire. Please note that this questionnaire has no bearing on your mark. It's simply a few questions guiding the government in terms of your reactions to your own literacy journey. So it has to be completed in order for the test to be completed, but you do not have to worry that this will impact your mark. So if we look at the breakdown of session A and B, session A lets you know that there are 3 reading selections. The yellow dots indicate it is a multiple choice question. So 7 in the first one, 6 in the second one, and 5 in the third one. The green dot indicates an open response. So here in session A, your open response is a max of 100 words. And in session B, there are 5 less questions, but the open response here is a max of 500 words, and that is the opinion essay. And I just want to also draw your attention to the fact that in the session B, selection 2, the multiple choice questions are all grammar and sentence structure based. So there isn't a reading component here. You are answering questions about proper punctuation, capitalization, sentence structure, commas, things of that nature. So next week, when you go to complete your assessment, here's what your day is going to look like. You're going to report to period 1 as usual. Right before the test, there'll be a 5-minute set of instructions. There's a script that your teacher has to read to you. 8:30, all classes will begin together. So teachers, when we switch over to your perspective, you will unlock session A for your students at 8:30. Session A will last an hour. If you finish early, students, you cannot start session B. You must find something else to do quietly while you wait for session B to begin. Break will be from 9:30 to 9:45, and then we will repeat that pattern after the instruction session, booklet B with submission, and then the last few minutes of class, you'll complete the questionnaire. Just briefly, because 31 of the 33 questions are multiple choice, we just want to make sure that we are still giving them the attention they deserve. They are not perhaps as easy as one might think, and so we want to make sure we're using the following strategies. Are you reading and rereading the questions carefully? Are you using best practices to eliminate answers that you know are off topic? Have you reread parts of the selection to help you select the most correct answer? You'll have the ability to flag questions with the online feature. I'll show you once we're in the test. And so with this feature, you can go back to questions later if you're unsure of the answer. If you leave a question unanswered, it will score it as a 0. So please answer every question for the best chance of receiving a score of a pass. I have seen students finish with a score of 290 and 295. And again, that minimum is 300. The split screen option I will show you in the test, but this just gives you ability to look at both the question and the reading passage on the same screen at the same time. So this is helpful for both students and teachers. So you will not be using your personal device next week to complete the literacy test. You will be assigned a Chromebook, and teachers, those will be delivered to your classes. You're going to open your Chromebook, but you're not going to log in the regular manner. You're going to open the tab section in the bottom left corner, and from there, you're going to click on the kiosk app. This green screen will pop up, and it's asking you for 2 pieces of information. Your access code, which will be given to you by your teachers. Teachers, it'll be on your Invigilation page, and it is in a pink box, a series of letters. You can give this information to the students either on your Blackboard or on your screen. And it's also going to ask for your OEN number. Once you sign in, students, it's important to know that this Chromebook will go into lock mode until the session is complete. So that means that you won't be able to open any other tabs. You will only be able to work within the confines of the test. Another tip to be successful I wanted to mention is the opinion paragraph. So of the 400 marks for the test, the supported opinion paragraph is worth 100 of that 400. So one question on the test is worth 100 of the 400 marks. 60 marks are for your ideas, so your opinion, your supporting details and your examples, and 40 marks for your form. How well organized is your writing? Do you use paragraphs and indentations and have an organizational structure and pattern? You have 500 words to create this opinion essay. Note that it is words and not characters. So there's a difference there. The topic is kept secret. You will not know it until next week, but they do revolve around issues that are related to high school students. So for example, here is a question from a few years ago. Should high school students be required to take a physical education course every year? So in developing your answer, you would come up with an introduction that states your idea, either yes or either no, supporting paragraphs, and a conclusion. And these ideas are going to contain supporting details that are well explained. And it doesn't hurt to add in specific facts as well. You're welcome to make up these facts. So statistics you can make up if they help you to support a general conclusion. So what might that look like? Well, the question is going to say, write a minimum of 3 paragraphs. I'm going to recommend you write 5. And this is because you have a higher chance of scoring higher on the 40 marks for form if you divide your writing into 5 sections. It shows the marker that you have a good understanding of how to write a series of paragraphs. So paragraph 1 would be an introduction where you agree or disagree with the question. Paragraphs 2, 3, 4 support specific arguments and details. And paragraph 5 has a concluding statement and wrap up. And again, keep in mind the length of 500 words. There is a rough note section on the test, but you're also welcome to use pen and paper. So I would highly recommend using one of these tools in order to help develop your ways of thinking. The short answer question is 100 words. And here's a sample. Explain why Montreal's approach to graffiti is beneficial. So in this type of format, you are answering like you would on a short answer style in any of your classes. You restate the question, state the main idea, provide direct support. You can actually copy paste from sections of the test for your support, which is actually encouraged. I'll show you how to do that. Make sure you have complete sentences and proofread for correct spelling. And you have the feature of the split screen. So again, you can read the text and copy paste your quotations directly into the text. So you're able to have headphones if you want to listen to the questions, but you're not allowed to have your phone. No phones have ever been permitted during the OSSLT, and this year is no different. So please keep that in mind and don't try to get around this the day of the test. You're welcome to have pen and pencils with you for rough notes, or you can use all the online features. So at this time, I'm going to invite the classes to do the online practice. Now, my class has already done this, so I don't have them in front of me to let me know how the setup is going. But the first thing I'll get you to do is to enter into Google OSSLT practice test. And you're going to click on the first link, which will bring you to the EQAO page. So I'm not sure if teachers can let me know how this is going in their classes, but I'm going to go ahead and click on the link. And students, while I'm doing this, so I'm going to click on the second link here, practice test. While I'm doing this, please note that this is a public website, and so you can practice on the practice test anytime before your test next week. There is no login required. So it's a really good strategy to have a sense of what the test is going to look like. The test is pretty much identical to the practice test in its structure. And so if you're comfortable with the practice test, you should have no problems on the actual test. So from here, I'm going to enter in the test. Do not worry about entering name or surname. You're going to see a screen with three options: Minds On, General Instruction, and Tools. The Minds On section is just there to let you know the general theme or topic of the reading selections. You are not required to do anything, to write anything, or quite frankly, even read it if you don't want to. General Instruction, so these are all the best practices that I know you guys know when you're taking a test, and I'm sure your teachers have reminded you. Do work to the best of your ability. If you leave a question blank, it's going to be scored a 0. And the word count for each box will decrease as you go. So I can click through these and read all of them. It's going to remind you, be sure to review your work before you submit. And you may have some flag questions left to do. And the last section before we play around with the actual questions is the tool feature. You're going to notice that all the tools are on the right-hand side. And even though there's all these pages dedicated to explaining the tool, I think it's easiest just to hover your cursor over each of these and find out what they do. So a help screen just lets you know some icons of how to manipulate through the test. I click off that when I'm done. The listen feature will open up a text speech here. I can play the selection, I can adjust the volume, and I can even change the speed at which it's read back to me. I'm going to then click off the listen button. That's an important feature. Anytime you click on something, you have to then click it off again to go back to the default mode. I can zoom in and zoom out. I can use a line reader feature that allows me to block out everything but what I want to read. And again, I click off. I can use a high contrast, so it'll flip the font colors if I prefer to look at the white over the black. I can draw lines, which to be honest, isn't overly of value, I would say, on this test, but it is there for you if you want to connect key ideas. I can also highlight perhaps a bit more of value than the line feature. And then finally, I can erase everything if I feel as though it's no longer necessary. So let me zoom back out here. So now I'm ready for the test. So when you open up the test, you'll notice that you can only access session A. Session B is not available to you until you go through session A, but there's a couple shortcuts you can take in the practice, so I'll show those to you. There are my 3 reading selections. I'm going to show you a couple of the multiple choice questions, so let's click on real life narrative. It kind of works in a Dora the Explorer type setup, so it's letting you know you're on an adventure to Woodstock and you're looking to collect a certain item for your backpack. So I'm going to click continue, and here's my first reading selection. The scroll down bar lets me know that it is going to be longer than what I see here. And page 2 or next page lets me know that there is a second page to read. So that is the length. So I should first scan through and figure out what type of length and what type of document I am reading. From here, there are all my tool features on the side I can use. And on the left-hand side is the question. You can click through any of the questions at any time. They do not need to be done in the right order. Now, one really helpful tool is that if you want to answer the questions while also looking at the reading selection, you're going to click on the open and close reading selection at the bottom. And this is really helpful because it allows you to see the reading selection and the questions at the same time. So question 1 is a standard multiple choice question. It's actually directly stated, meaning the answer is in the text and I can put my finger on it. So I'm going to read the selection. I'm going to make my guess. I'm going to guess the last one here, and then I can go on to the next question. Question 3 is an interesting one. That's that checklist I was telling you about. It's letting you know that the question wants you to select 2 of the responses. Question 6 is that drag and drop feature. So here I'm putting events in the following order in which they actually happened in the reading, which is really important. So you can drag around. Sometimes it's a little finicky and it's going to bounce back. So just make sure you do it until you're happy with the order. If there's a question you're not sure of, you can flag a question and it's going to put a little icon next to it so that you can come back to it later and answer the question that way. It's going to ask you to review and submit. Please note, if you've missed any questions, it will tell you you haven't answered 4 and you have 1 flag. Do you want to continue? For the sake of the practice, I'm going to say yes, because I want to try and get to session B just to play around with it. So I'm going to click yes. On the actual day of the test, you're not going to do that. The writing selection, the short one, I just want to show you. So if you click on the news report, and it's going to be the last question, question 6. So if you click on question 6 in reading 2, so here is my 100-word box. If I start to type, you'll notice that the word count goes down. And again, it's by word and not characters. So I can make this box as big as I feel I need to, and I can also use the rough note section to type my ideas here. And you can move this rough note section around, and you can also make it bigger, and then just click off it. As I mentioned, you can copy paste parts of the test into your answers. So if you want to use perhaps this sentence here as your direct support, I can copy and I can directly paste it into my answer. So again, this is encouraged on the test. You just want to make sure that you're using your details in a relevant way. So you would introduce it as part of the sentence, and you would indicate the paragraph number that it comes from. So you can use the copy paste feature to help you decide your answer. So once you submit everything, you're going to kind of come to a screen that looks like this. So I've completed my 3 tokens and I'm going to hit finish. It's going to give me one more chance to say, here are all the questions you missed. Are you sure you want to answer it? I'm going to say yes for now, and then I'm going to submit. Teachers, I'm going to let you know what happens on your end once the students reach this screen. And then you're going to continue to session B. So I'm just going to quickly submit all of these because I want to get to the answer selection. So you can have the test graded for you and practice this weekend. Here is that opinion piece question. So again, same thing, 500 word count, and you can make the box as big as you need to, and you're going to type your response there. So I'm going to submit, even though I haven't written anything. And again, I'm going to hit finish. And now you can view your results. So what this looks like, it's not going to grade your written selection, but it's going to let you know the answers to the multiple choice questions when I click on them. If you answered the question, so I answered this one, and it's letting me know I am correct. So you can kind of go through and decide for yourself how well you're doing and if you want to do them again. So with that, students, you have some time to play around within the test. As you're doing so, teachers, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint and we're going to go over your responsibilities and your invigilation mode. I should mention I do have Stephanie Rocha with me from the board who created most of this PowerPoint and is very knowledgeable in some of the tech issues. So if you have any questions, she's here to help me. So the first thing, hopefully you have done this by now, but if you haven't, that's okay. You should have received an email. Mine came from Kathleen last Sunday, looking something like this. So this is going to get you to complete your registration. So you simply follow the link and it's going to give you the invitation code. My invitation code actually generated right in the box. I didn't even have to copy paste. So I just filled out the rest. I created a password based on the characters it wanted. And it brings me to a page that looks something like this. So the day of your test, you're going to log into that window again. So to log in a second time, you're going to go to EQAO. And in the top right corner, there'll be a login button. Now, when I did this, it automatically generated my password and my email. And so I just clicked the sign in button. Here's what you're going to see. So this is my actual class here at Corpus, HRT3M. I have 22 students, and here is my course code that the students need the day of. So your page is going to look very similar. So if I click on select grouping, I mean, I can't in this PowerPoint, but you should be able to hover your cursor over it. When you click select grouping, it's going to bring you to that next stage. This is just a side note. You can add a student to your class if your class is missing one, although Pat is graciously agreed to do this for you. So once you're going to scan through your students, if you're missing a student, just email Pat and he can add you. But you do have the ability to add them yourself through the manage feature. And all you need is the student's OEN number, and you can get this through PowerSchool. So, okay, day of test, what are you doing? So once you've clicked on your class, you're going to see this session come up. Now, Pat's already scheduled them for you. So for example, mine is November 23rd. Even though the test is starting at 8 a.m., he made the window open from even though the test is at 8:30, the window can open at 8 a.m. for you. So this gives you half an hour to feel comfortable with the space, to find out your access code, to present it to your students. But you're not going to unlock the test until 8:30. So even though he has started the test, you can't unlock it until 8:30 for your students. You may not have this practice test section here. I was just playing around with it the other day, so it's okay if you don't have this. So you're going to click on this button here. You can actually do this now. I did it last night. I was nervous at first. I was going to start the test for the students, but I didn't. So when you click on this button, it brings you to kind of this grayed out page, and it lets you know that this assessment is not going to start until November 23rd at 8:30. It also lets me know my students and whether they're currently online or offline. It'll show me their OEN number. And here is the button to for the sessions, A, B, and questionnaire, and it is currently locked. So since the session is currently locked, once you have read the script to the students, you are going to unlock the session for them. So you're going to click this lock button. And once you do, it's going to change to blue and it's going to show unlock, at which time the students will begin. So their Chromebook is now going to alert them. Your teacher has unlocked the test. You can go ahead and start. So some important details here. You're going to unlock the session at 8:30. What happens if you have a student who walks in the room at 9 o'clock? That's okay, because since you've unlocked the session for everyone, they can start at any time. They're under no time penalty. So your responsibility at 8:30 is to unlock the session, and your responsibility at 9:45 is to unlock session B. A student cannot move from session A to session B unless they have submitted it. So even though you've unlocked session B, if a student isn't done session A, that's fine. They're under no penalty because the system won't even let them progress. So again, at 8:30, you're going to unlock session A. At 9:45, you're going to unlock session B. Once you unlock a session, you now spend that hour monitoring students. You can actually see which question they're on and how long they've been on it. So if you notice a student has been on a question for 15 minutes, you can, perhaps go over and remind them to get back to the test. When a student submits session A, their screen here is going to change. Now, this is a picture off a phone, so I apologize if it's blurry, but once they submit it, there's going to be a green check mark next to the name and it's going to be submitted. And underneath, it's actually going to say how long it took them. And then if session B has been unlocked, so let's say this student did take the 67 minutes, so they're over, they're going to start session B, which you've already unlocked at the designated time. So if a student requires extra time, so let's say it's 11 o'clock and the student is still working on session A, that's no problem. They will take that Chromebook and that student will head to the library and they will continue working. Now, we do realize that since it's under your class invigilation page, you are responsible for locking the session. But that doesn't have to happen immediately. So if by the end of the day, the student finally finishes session A and B, we will either contact you and say, please lock the sessions, or anytime you pop back into this teacher page, so you can close and leave as many times. Once you log back in, so let's say it's even the next morning, then you can lock the session. So you do not need to be in the same physical space as the students if they require extra time. So again, if you teach period 2 and you need to go on with your day, that's absolutely fine. Once everyone has submitted, you will then lock the sessions at a later time. So I hope that makes sense. And I can go over that again if you have any questions. Again, there's a script for session A and session B. There's always been a script for the literacy test, and we will provide this to you. And I just really want to drive home the point that students cannot start early. You do have the ability to unlock individual sessions. So if a student after 20 minutes has missed, can I go on? You unfortunately have to say no, find something to do, even though you have that ability to unlock personal sessions. So again, your requirements are to unlock session A at 9:30 and unlock session B at 9:45, and the students will submit on their own time frame. You have the ability to pause a session, but just keep in mind this is pausing for the entire class. So this isn't, Miss, can I go to the washroom, and then you would pause. No, it'll pause for everyone. So this is only under the circumstance of there's a fire drill or there's a tech issue and we need to pause for everyone. How do you extend the time? Again, you are not required to monitor students past your period 1 time schedule. So once you unlock according to the school schedule, they will continue on their own time. But as I mentioned, you will then have to lock the session after, and this can be done at a later date once everyone has submitted. So again, if you have a student who goes to the library, someone from the literacy team or Pat will contact you later in the day and say, so-and-so has finally finished. Could you go ahead and please lock the session? Please let your students know that they cannot return to a session if they have submitted it. And so students should be really clear that they are confidently done a session before they submit. Ending a session. So this, in theory, doesn't have to be done until the date of December 1st. So if for some reason you are unsure or nervous about submitting results, you do not have to do this right away. You can check, again, with Pat or myself before the due date of December 1st. And this action is cannot be reversed. And so once all the sessions are submitted and you see all those green check marks for the questionnaire as well, then you can submit results. Again, if you're nervous about this, you can wait and do this at a later point in time. And that's kind of it. There's a slide about resetting password. You can go through that on your own. If you're missing a student, as I mentioned, use Pat for that. He can add you in, but you do have the ability to add them in yourself as long as you have the OEN number. So that's it from me. If there's any questions, or if the students have a question that we could answer.
Hi, Mr. Orlando.
Hi.
So quick question. Well, actually, and I'm gonna post the question and then I'm gonna answer it myself. So we'll see how this goes. But I heard you say that like if we had a student that goes over the time, so you've got that 150-minute block. Each one of the booklets or sections is about 60 minutes has been allotted for it. So you should, for the most part, students should be able to get that done. But if we have a student who feels like they're taking a really long time and they are coming out of sync with the rest of the class, what we can do is that we can move that student after booklet 1, after that session 1 is finished. I will move them to a different location where there are other students that had already requested additional time. But that being said, I don't foresee that to be a large problem. That might happen between 1 or 2 students or whatever throughout the whole school when we're running this assessment. And if that happens, not a problem. The classroom teacher would just notify me at the end of booklet 1. We would make the switch over to the other teacher and just move them down the hall. Okay, does that make sense, Ms. Orlando?
Yes, makes sense to me. So hopefully that alleviates some stress and some anxiety for not only the teachers and the students. So again, there is no countdown clock of 60 minutes that's going to kick you out of the system. There is time for you to complete, and then whenever you feel confident and ready, then we'll lock that session for you.
Are there any other questions from either staff or students? I don't know if you can see that, Ms. Orlando, but Ms. Puglisi says, you are awesome, and what you presented was awesome as well.
All right, I did not see that, but thank you very much.
There you go. Okay, so then teachers, what I would suggest you do with your students right now is that you take that opportunity to go through more of the assessment, get them to practice a couple of the questions. On our teams, like our staff teams page, there's an OSSLT channel, and in that channel I've stolen actually a lot of what Miss Roca, who is on the call as well, thank you so much, she's our itinerant for literacy, and she has done all of this work for us to produce supports. So there's a lot of resources that are there. So if you're going through the assessment, I know that, and I missed a little bit of this one, but in last one, Miss Orlando had talked about the main point questions. There was a question that was all about main points and being able to pull the main point and the supporting details and that kind of stuff. Well, there's resources available for you to go into more depth with your class if you feel that that's necessary, okay? So it's just stuff like that. You got a couple of days before the assessment's happening. I have no doubt that everyone is well prepared and is going to do great on it, but you know, the one thing that you can do to make sure that you're really feeling prepared is to go through and like really test out the system and make sure you fully understand how to use all the tools and what the questions are going to look like. Because what you see on that practice test is very similar to what you're going to see on the day of.
That's a good point, Mr. Brophy. I think I forgot to mention it here, so I will. So about the main idea. So if you go back to the test session A, it's the information paragraph. So the last question, question 6, it's not a multiple choice and it's not a short answer. It is indicating a main idea. This question has historically been done in a written format, but this time it is in a drop-down kind of way. So the main idea is author's message on a topic. So topic plus author's message. It's kind of like the theme in a short story. So you need to find the sentence that best indicates the main idea. You're going to drop it into place. And then you're going to find the supporting details that correspond with that author's message. This is scored a little bit higher than a regular multiple choice question because of its difficulty. So even though all you're doing is dragging 3 boxes in, it is historically one of the more challenging questions for students, because you first need to really pinpoint what that main idea is and then find the corresponding details. So again, that's in selection 2 in booklet A, and it's question 6. And so you can practice that and check the right answer, and then if you need to go back and do it a couple times, you can. So thanks for reminding me, Mr. Brophy, about that one. Lots of questions to play around with. If you're comfortable with the practice test, I promise you, you'll be comfortable with the real test. They look identical.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. And then one more thing that I needed to mention was that if you're going to use one of the great features on here, and I'm sure that Miss Orlando talked about it when she talked about like a grammar question and the text-to-speech feature. So we can't have 30 students in one class that are all listening to text-to-speech like just on the speakers on their devices, because then it'll be a muddled mess in the classroom. So instead, you're going to have to use headphones. I strongly encourage you to bring headphones just in case you need them. However, the Chromebooks, we're not going to connect via Bluetooth, because you can imagine the mess that's going to create if everyone's trying to connect their fancy Bluetooth headphones to these devices. So instead, you need a set of headphones that have a cord, so that you can go right into the auxiliary jack or the mic jack or whatever it is. Wherever it fits, that's where it's going to go. But you need something like this that has a cord to it. So I have purchased, the school has purchased a handful of these if you don't have one, but I've tested them out. They're okay. They're not the most comfortable. I would strongly encourage that if you have an old pair of headphones at home that are corded that you can plug into the Chromebooks, to bring those on the day of. And if you didn't, I can provide you with these. And they're okay. They're from the dollar store. They're not great, but they'll do the trick on the day of. Okay, so that's just something else to remember for the day of.
Sorry, Mr. Brophy and Mr. Orlando, do you just want me to highlight some of the hiccups that maybe we've had so far, just in the event that they come up at Corpus when you guys are writing the test?
Yes, that would actually be fantastic.
Okay, excellent. So not too many, which we're thankful for, but there is an issue that came up at one of the schools where teachers on their end were getting a message that said there was a server connection issue, was I think what it said. And it appears in like a small little yellow box on the top right corner of your screen. I think that's an internal EQAO issue that they are working through. We've reported it to them. It hasn't happened since that time. But the workaround or the fix was just to sort of wait it out. So it kind of blocks the students and almost freezes the teacher screen and the student screen until I suppose the server reconnects. And then the issue is kind of resolved. It kind of came in waves, and I would say maybe twice during session A and then never again. So should that occur, no need to panic, just kind of wait it out. And then you should be able to resume without issue. Another issue that sort of came up in the assessments that I've observed is a notification on the teacher screen that alerts you. I think if I remember correctly, it's a little exclamation icon that comes on next to a student's name. And that alert sort of tells you that the student navigated away from the test page. I think it's just a glitchy sort of error. It seems as though it occurs when students accidentally touch a key on their keyboards when there's no kind of text box for them to be typing into. So I think the alert is that they navigated away. They didn't, because they can't within the kiosk. So you would just have to acknowledge it on your end. So you simply click the exclamation mark and just say like, okay, essentially confirming that the student did not do anything that would suggest that they cheated or navigated away or anything like that. So that's just one glitch. The student will get a similar pop-up on their screens, essentially asking why they moved away. Again, they can just cancel it or press OK, whatever the button gives them the option to select. And then in the event that you were sort of playing around with your own class and you happen to schedule a practice test through the kiosk, you won't be able to begin the official literacy test without having submitted those practice test results. So if you get an error message on the day of when you click into your scheduled time and it says something to the effect of you already have a session or a test in session, it's probably alerting you that the practice test is still open and hasn't been submitted. So in that case, you would just quickly kind of go into the practice test, regardless if students had completed it or not, and just click that green submit results button, and then it will kind of like take it away from your screen, and then you're able to start the official literacy test as well. And then the final note is just a reminder that if possible, not to have the students close the Chromebooks in between session A and session B, because it will log them out of the system, and then there'll be a bit of startup time in terms of getting them to plug in their OEN again, plug in the access code again, and that sort of stuff. So save yourself the headache and just keep the Chromebooks open if possible between sessions A and sessions B. And then I know I said that was the last one, but I do have one more. So between session A and session B, teachers need to unlock session B so students can begin, but that is not the case for the questionnaire. Immediately after a student finishes session B, the questionnaire automatically opens for them to proceed. Students, however, I don't know, I suppose it's a high stress time, will often just close their laptops or close their Chromebooks immediately after. So just double check on your teacher screen. You can see who has completed the questionnaire, because sometimes what you'll see is, you know, student successfully completed session A and session B, but the questionnaire is incomplete. So you won't be able to submit your results until that student goes back in. So, you know, when a student says, okay, I'm done, just triple check that all of the three kind of columns are checked off, and then you're good to go.
Wonderful. And what I'm hearing, Ms. Roca, and all that is don't panic, because it sounds like the system either self-corrects or there's a real easy workaround. Yeah,
it is. I will say, and we kind of discussed it earlier, it's a lot of instructions, there's a lot of words, but I promise you the system is pretty intuitive. And if you just kind of poke around, play around a bit, I'm confident that everyone will be just fine.
Okay, so then what we're going to do is that teachers, feel free to have your students, like I said, work through some of the questions, talk to them about it, share something on your screen, work through an answer or a question and answer as a class, just so we all feel comfortable and we're ready to go for next week. If you do have any other questions, you can always come see myself, Miss Orlando, or Miss Puglisi for more information. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.